Hello everybody, it is Luke here, and I want to just quickly share with you an opinion that I've been brewing on for the past week now. Last Tuesday, I went to the movie theater and I saw 6 films, and I want to talk about one of them in particular right now. And honestly, I'm not really sure why I feel so inclined to talk about this film out of all of them, because it was actually one of my least favorite ones, and it's one of the ones I was least excited for, and that is Atomic Blonde, starring Charlize Theron and James McAvoy, and it comes to us from the director of John Wick. And just a quick thing, John Wick, I like the film. I actually prefer the second one a lot more. I don't love John Wick, so going into Atomic Blonde, I wasn't sold. I wasn't super excited for it, and overall, the movie it just really wasn't anything special to me. First off, I think that the storytelling and the story itself is just really not very engaging, and it has a very non-linear story, which is fine because I love non-linear ways of telling stories in films. Dunkirk, for example, Christopher Nolan's most recent film, excellent non-linear storytelling. But this film, you kind of know what it's leading up to because it shows you the end of the movie first, and then most of it's told in flashbacks. And I don't know, that part kind of bothered me a little bit. I didn't like knowing where everything was going, and I found it to be a little bit predictable because of that. I'll also say that the story, it felt really convoluted to me. I thought that at times it was really hard to follow, and like understanding what people's intentions in the film weren't all that clear. Like characters would do things, and I was kind of confused as to why. I didn't understand what their thought process was. And maybe this is just my problem. Maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention to the movie, and maybe I was just going in pessimistically and just not wanting to enjoy it. I mean, I was just sitting there watching it, just like, I'm gonna watch this movie. I have more movies I'm excited to watch, but I just felt like this film was really hard to follow. The performances, Charlize Theron, she proved herself to be a really good action hero in Mad Max Fury Road, that is obvious. And in this movie, she has some emotional depth, and she's really good in the fight scenes, in the choreographed fight scenes. And her performance it's really like stern to the point. She's not messing around, and I thought her character was just a little bit boring. I think she could have been a bit more interesting. Maybe we'll get some sequels and they'll flesh her out a bit more. James McAvoy in this film, he is in a really eccentric role, and he tends to do that sometimes, and I love James McAvoy. And he was good in this film, and his character was definitely exciting, and it was fun watching him and Charlize Theron kind of bounce off of each other. But I didn't fully grasp, and this goes into the storytelling and just the character development too. I didn't really fully grasp like what his intentions were in the film, and like how he was really at how his character was adding to the overall plot. Because I don't know if I mentioned this, but the plot of this movie to me was just really convoluted, and the back and forth with the flashbacks and what's happening in the current time frame, it just didn't really seem to coincide very well, and it was a little bit confusing. There is a really excellent action scene in this film. It seems to be about like 7 to 9 minutes in length, and they make it seem like the film is not cutting. And I'm assuming that they did do cuts, because there are parts where a body will fly in front of the camera, and it just kind of seems like that was an edit and it wasn't all one continuous shot. Probably had to like apply makeup or something like that, but it was a really well choreographed scene in a stairwell. Charlize Theron did really good with the stunt work, and it was exciting, and there was no music in that part of the film, so it kind of adds to that grit and intensity. And that was by far my favorite scene in the entire film. But the thing almost runs in at about 2 hours, and there's just a lot of like spy talk going back and forth, and none of the dialogue that's written is very intriguing, and it just isn't very interesting. I think the movie would have been a lot of fun if it were written by Quentin Tarantino, because he's like the master of dialogue, obviously. But yeah, I just thought that the script was kind of lacking, and the storytelling just made it kind of convoluted. Also, I'll say that the soundtrack for this film, it takes place in the Cold War era, in the 80s, right before taking down the Berlin Wall in Germany, Berlin. And the soundtrack is awesome. I love 80s European music. There's a lot of New Order, there's some Ministry, stuff like that, but it uses the music like almost all the time. Like if you look at the soundtrack listing for this movie, they use so many songs and it almost feels a little bit like Suicide Squad-y, where they just keep throwing like iconic, memorable music on top of scenes just to give it that extra punch. And I feel like they could have done a better job of using a different medium to create a stylized tone for this film, because it felt like a music video a lot of the time. Even in parts that there wasn't really much happening, they'd start playing like a classic 80s like electronic like house song, and it just kind of started to get on my nerves a little bit. And also, like I said, the story, it didn't really grab me all that much, and I felt like the movie took way too long explaining things instead of getting to what people I think really went there for, is the action. There really seemed to be a little bit of a lack of action scenes in this movie, and it was more just like people talking, and like I said, the script isn't all that great in my opinion, so it wasn't the most engaging of dialogue in the film. But that's pretty much what I thought about it. There were things I really liked about it, like that one shot was really awesome. There was another scene where in a movie theater where Charlize Theron is being followed by these guys and she has to fend them off. That was a good scene too. But I think that overall the story was a little bit messy, and the movie tried way too hard to have style over substance, and the soundtrack really was just a little overbearing at times. So my score for it was 2.5 out of 5 stars. If you guys want to, let me know what you think about the movie, and if you liked this review, if you want me to, I could do this for the other films that I saw last Tuesday. That is The Big Sick, A Ghost Story, Dunkirk, Valerian, and The City of a Thousand Planets, and not Rise of the Planet of the Apes and not Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, but War for the Planet of the Apes. So if you want to hear my opinion on any of those films, just comment and I'll do something like this. So yeah, that's my just an opinion on Atomic Blonde. If you enjoyed that, please like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later.